The Summer Games Minute, brought to you by Mass Mutual. For most professional athletes, versatility means they can play a few different positions in a single sport. For Babe Dietrichson-Zaharias, versatility means dominance across the entire spectrum of sport. In the 1932 Summer Games in Los Angeles, Zaharias won gold in the 80-meter hurdles and the javelin throw, plus she got a silver in the high jump. Running, throwing, jumping wasn't enough for Babe, so she became a competitive billiards player, then jumped into professional golf, winning 10 major championships, all the while making a few pitching appearances in Major League Baseball spring training games. Mass Mutual understands the nuances in how women want and need to manage their finances. With quality product solutions and guidance, a Mass Mutual financial professional can help you plan for both short-term and long-term money goals. Learn more and get started at massmutual.com.
As you've probably heard by now, we've teamed up with BetMGM this season. We'll be using BetMGM lines to make all of our picks, and we'll have special offers for our listeners each week. If you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use bonus code The Athletic, and you'll get a 1-year subscription to The Athletic, plus up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's how it works. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using bonus code The Athletic. Make your first deposit of at least $10. Place your first bet on any game and claim your voucher for a 1-year subscription to The Athletic. See BetMGM.com for terms. U.S. promotional offers not available in D.C., Mississippi, New York, Nevada, Ontario, or Puerto Rico. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Available in the U.S. Call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369 in New York. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP in Arizona. 1-800-327-5050 in Massachusetts. 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa. 1-800-270-7117 for confidential help in Michigan. 1-800-981-0023 in Puerto Rico. First bet offer for new customers only in partnership with Kansas Crossing Casino and Hotel. Don't forget, if you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use bonus code The Athletic, and you'll get a 1-year subscription to The Athletic, plus up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager.
When you need mealtime inspiration, it's worth shopping Kroger, where you'll find over 30,000 mouth-watering choices that excite your inner foodie. And no matter what tasty choice you make, you'll enjoy our everyday low prices, plus extra ways to save, like digital coupons worth over $600 each week. You can also save up to $1 off per gallon at the pump with fuel points. More savings and more inspiring flavors make shopping Kroger worth it every time. Kroger, fresh for everyone. Fuel restrictions apply.
The Athletic.
Well, hello and welcome to yet another of our Formula E off-season specials. As ever, we've got a very special guest with us, and today, making his debut on our podcast, we've got Scott Swid, who is the general partner and managing owner of the Monaco Sports Group, which owns the Maserati MSG Racing Formula E team. He's, of course, joined as ever by our roving Formula E reporter, Sam Smith. Scott, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Andrew. Appreciate being here.
So, a bit of obvious point to start with. It's been your first full year in the series. What did you see that made you want to invest in Formula E and with that team in particular?
This will be our fourth season. And I was in the investment management business for many, many years. And in the investment management business, one of the things you do when you're looking to find investments and try and create an edge, you just read a lot, and you read reports that other people have written, and you share ideas and you hear ideas through relationships and communities. And I read a report, this was years ago, on Formula One, which I'm an American and I'm a sports enthusiast. I played a lot of sports. I watch a lot of sports. I watch less sports every year, but I keep up on a lot of sports. Motorsports is not one of them. But I read this report, a very initial report, right after Liberty Media had bought their controlling stake in Formula One, and they spun it out as what's called a tracking stock. And I read the report on Formula One, and it sounded really interesting. Formula One didn't really sound interesting. What sounded interesting to me was sort of how poorly managed it had been for so many years, or I shouldn't say poorly, but sort of unprofessionally managed, and managed sort of for that year's cash flow without a lot of strategic vision behind it, and racing to come up with rewards for people who would stay in the series, and I thought Liberty just sort of approached it, at least what this report said, as a business prospect, and they paid whatever they paid, $6 billion, $7 billion, I forgot what they paid, $8 billion. They obviously needed to make a big return on this. So I was more interested in what they were going to do. And we have models. And again, I different from everyone else in our ecosystem, or most people in our ecosystem. When I talk sports, I usually use U.S. Sports examples. So it might not go well with our audience here. But when good management takes over what I call the league, or what we would call here the series, the championship series, the teams become incredibly valuable. We saw that in the mid '80s when a guy named David Stern took over as the CEO of the National Basketball Association, and we saw that really in the '60s when a guy named Pete Rozelle took over what we call football, or the NFL, American football. And those two sports, American football by far much bigger than the NBA. But those are the two biggest sports in America by far. And the teams are worth billions and billions and billions of dollars. So it seemed like instead of buying a stock in Liberty, tracking stock of Formula One, I should go look at a team, because if they're managed right, the teams become the most valuable. And through that process, as you guys know, you're more aware of all this than I am, that it's a pretty small community. And once I kind of got in sniffing around the community, Alejandro Agag is someone I've known for many, many years. Alejandro called me up and basically said, forget about Formula One. I got a team for you in Formula E. And it was December of 2019. And my daughter was studying in London in February of 2019. It was studying 1920 that school year in London, and I had a plan to visit her in February of 20, and right before COVID, and I said, "All right, Alejandro, just tell them I'll come visit them in February when I go over to Europe." The team was in Monaco, and Alejandro, who's I don't know if this now, we all know Alejandro, so I don't know if this is true or if this is just his salesmanship. But he said, "No, you got to get there tomorrow. They're about to sell this to someone else." So I was in Los Angeles at the time, and I flew Paris to and got the connector to Nice, and got picked up by the team at the airport and drove to the Hotel de Paris and had lunch with Susie Wolf, and Susie, and I just talked for 2-3. It was a very 3 hours or so. We talked about a lot, and I knew close to nothing about Formula E, and I knew close to nothing about Formula One, but I knew enough about the way companies work, and the way industries work, and so we sort of talked more from the top level about the industry and about FE and about F1 and a lot, and we seemed to get along very well. And then COVID hit a couple months later, and by 1 year later, by December of 2020, we bought the team from Susie Wolf and Gildo Pastor. And it was called Venturi Grand Prix was the name of the company we bought, and the team was called Rocket Venturi at that point.
So your analysis of what Liberty would do to the Formula One teams was spot on. I mean, they've got $1 billion plus valuations now. How has your knowledge and understanding of the motorsport space in Formula E developed over those past 3 or 4 years, wherever we are now?
Yeah, so you're saying I made the wrong choice. Thanks, Andrew.
These things are judged by the outcome at the end, aren't they? Not necessarily where we are now.
Yeah, I mean, I think Formula One, it's a little bit of luck, but it's mostly strategy. I mean, they got Drive to Survive, helped a lot, but the cost cap was incredibly valuable to Formula One, like incredibly valuable to Formula One. We don't need to. I'm sure your audience understands that. They stuck to 10 teams. They raised the price dramatically for an 11th team, and obviously, even if someone pays that price, I don't think anyone wants an 11th team in there. And we'll see, in the next year or so. But all that creates massive value, and they did more revenue share with the profit sharing. There were teams, as you know, special teams that had special deals with Ecclestone and carried over to CVC. None of that exists anymore. It's a level playing field, and that they did everything that should make it a better sport and more competitive. The flip side is it's not a better sport and it's not competitive at all. One guy just won 95% of the races, or whatever the math is. So we're the sport. I mean, our sport is from the sporting side, it is fabulous. We have great racers, great drivers, great races. I think the problem is that I don't think we've gotten enough support from the ownership group. I mean, I think that we're at a different life cycle. That Formula One's a series that's been around a long time and plays with more money in their sandbox. We don't have as much money in our sandbox, so revenue sharing is not going to be that significant. I mean, the revenue sharing has gone up a little bit. I know they don't use the term revenue sharing, but essentially the prize money is a kind of another form of revenue sharing. It's gone up a little bit, so it shows that their eye is on that. I really think what they have to do is they have to really invest in television. Television might be an antiquated word. They have to invest in video eyeballs, or whatever the correct marketing term is today. Broadcasting, streaming, whatever it is, live action viewing. Is what the series needs. And I think our two major owners, one of them, and this is all public knowledge, you could go, they're all public companies and you can go on their quarterly reports and their conference calls. But when Discovery bought Warner, they had $30 billion of debt, I think, and they've been hyper-focused on paying that debt down. So we're a series that needs capital to help us grow to where we should be. And one of our major owners, wasn't really prepared to do that at that time. I think right now, I don't know I'm not in the board, and we're also we're a company that doesn't report to the owners. We have our own Formula E has its own board that they've never invited me to any of the meetings, so I don't know what goes on in that board. But what I would hope is that they see that there's a great product, but they have to invest in people seeing it. And I think when you look at the history of FE, I think in the beginning, the early first 5, 6, 7 years, I think that we had a lot of good sponsors and television and everything like that when the product wasn't that good. Now the product is excellent, and now we really need to put our foot on the accelerator and start showing people that we have something really special here.
I think it's always had two very similar problems. One is the stability of the calendar, and the other's been whatever we want to call it, broadcasting, stream, or whatever, getting the eyeballs on it. Because even when in season one, when sometimes the racing could occasionally not be so great, it was still exciting. Even with the car swaps in and whatever, the actual on-track product's generally been good. It's just the number of people seeing it that's been problematic.
Yeah, you're on to something. It's certainly about the calendar. we'll see in a couple of weeks in Mexico City is an unbelievable event. And that's been there on the same track for a lot of years. And the crowds are amazing. And, Sam, maybe you could dig this up. But if you go look at, because I was watching it on TV, I couldn't believe it. When you watch our race, there's not a single empty seat in the stands. And at the F1 race later in the year, you looked at the stands, there were empty seats all over the place. So I think this is an anecdote that says to what I believe, which is you're completely right. If we have a better calendar, it's better for everyone. It's better for the fans at the race, but it's also better for the television or broadcast or the live viewing audience. But it just shows what a good product we have. That's a like for like. It's in the exact same stadium. And I think we're drawing bigger crowds than F1 at the stadium. But then we'll look at the global eyeballs. The global eyeballs is dwarfing us. So now it's time for us to kind of, take our, I'm going to digress for a second, but in the financial crisis, there are three major U.S. auto companies: Ford, General Motors, and Chrysler, which was owned by Fiat at the time. Now it's part of Stellantis, who's our partner. But Alan Mulally, who's the CEO of Ford, I was speaking to him right during that time, like early 2008, before the shit hit the fan, but still things were not looking good. And he was a fairly new CEO. He'd come from Boeing, and he said, "I'm not focused on any of this." They had bad consumer reports. They didn't have great integrity of product. He said, all I'm going to do is focus on our product, get our consumer reports and our car and driver ratings up, come up with a great product, and everything will be fine. And I think we're in that position now where we have an excellent product, and now we need to kind of backfill and put and get the viewers and get the calendar. You're exactly right about that.
I think there's some good points there, Scott. When you look at other motorsport series, there is always an element of boom and bust. And if you look at the history, the last decade of Formula E, there really hasn't been that. If you take the pandemic out of it, which affected everybody, Formula E generally has been in good health with a lot of manufacturers, a lot of growth, and then obviously it was stymied a little bit by the pandemic. But actually, the bust of the boom and bust actually came in the first season, didn't it? There's this crisis after 3 races, and it all looked like it was going to fall apart. Once that was out of the way, Formula E has gone on this, this build of such a great, all the things Scott mentioned there, this great sporting format, great drivers, great teams. But, I share the same concerns. I just share this kind of feeling that it isn't maximising what it is or what it could be. And I think ultimately my question, Scott, here at the end of saying that is the kudos of owning a team. I've asked a number of people who own teams or are majority owners, stakeholders within Formula E teams. Do you feel that there is kudos in it? I mean, what's your position now after almost 4 years of been part of Formula E? Do you feel that there is still that sort of that value to having a team?
It's a great question, Sam. To me, the value, and Andrew touched on this earlier, but the value of owning a team is going to be when the values of the teams go up. I'm really not interested in like I said, I'm not I didn't come into this from a motorsports fan. I'm obviously a motorsports fan now, and I root really hard for our team, and I'm passionate about everything now, but I wasn't born this way. But if this isn't a successful business venture, it's irrelevant. All that's irrelevant. So that's first. In my world, my kids don't watch the races. It's not a big thing in my world. And to me, which is fine. Like I'm not, I'd rather, if I want this to be a business, then it's best for me just to focus on trying to make it a business, which is not easy.
Do your kids watch any live sport?
Yeah. We live in Florida now, and I'm a diehard New Yorker. My son came up to me the other day and said, "Dad, what time is our game on?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about, our game? What does R mean?" He says, "The Miami Dolphins." I'm like,
Oh.
I'm not watching the Miami Dolphins. That's your team, So yeah, my kids watch sports. We're big hockey fans and American football fans, and yeah, we watch sports. But meaning that it's not an American sport. I mean, I'm not saying FE is that big in any place, but it's not on in America. I mean, CBS Sports Network. It's hard for just like I don't know when I hear from our team that that it's on this station in France or this station in the UK. I don't really know what that means. I kind of know what it means, but CBS Sports Network I'm an American sports fan. I couldn't find CBS Sports Network on my cable system, and because it's not like CBS Sports is big, meaning they carry huge sporting events, and but CBS. So it's not like a sports network that does the sports for the major broadcast channel. The major broadcast channel does all the sports. So CBS Sports Network is like for oddball sports. And my cable system in Florida, where I live most of the time, doesn't even have CBS Sportsnet. So it's not, and I'm not blaming. I'm not saying this is an excuse. I'm just saying it's not in the realm of people who I know don't know anything about Formula E.
Yeah, that always reminds me of that bit in Dodgeball when it's on Fox Sports 8, the yacht show.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, that leads very nicely, and I suspect the answer to my question is because when I was there, I always hated having to try to explain to people that Formula E was like electric Formula One.
Yeah.
It's coming into being a decade old now. But does that brand resonate, or are you still having to explain to people when you see them what it is and what it means?
Not too many people ask me, but if I do, I just say it's like Formula One with electric cars, because now Formula One is known in the American audience, at least the American audience that people who I run into, because Drive to Survive was so significant here in the States. And then just since Drive to Survive came out, so when there was this real thirst, all of a sudden you have a race in Miami and you have a race in Las Vegas. And Miami is Las Vegas, meaning they're thousands of miles away, but there's not a single person who hasn't been to Miami and Las Vegas, meaning I'm not going to I've been around a long time. I've never been to Portland, Oregon in my life. You can't find anyone who's never been to Las Vegas and Miami, like multiple times. So these are, Formula One you can't avoid in the States now. So that's just an easy way for me to explain it.
I think that's a good point, actually, just to fast track a question about Formula E in the States, Scott. Obviously, it's hugely important, and we, as you said, it's always had a footprint with first Long Beach, a one-off in Miami in season one, which was a pretty fraught event from a promotional and organisational point of view, and then we had these years in New York at Red Hook, which was a great backdrop, but struggled to get significant attention for Formula E really over that 5-year stretch, and then we had this, what we think is a stopgap fixture in Portland. But I hear quite a lot that there is some decent progress, and there's some good possibility of racing in Los Angeles next season, and then there could be other venues as well that are on the horizon. Just your opinion on how important racing in the States is, and at least having a couple of dates out there. What would it mean as a team owner to have some real grandee sort of events over in the US?
Yeah, it's. I'm going to give you sort of a nuanced answer, where at the end of the day, we all work. Every single team out there, especially the independent teams like we all are fed our families are fed by our sponsors, and our sponsors, most of them, if not all of them, their largest market is the United States. So they're dying to activate in the United States. And if we didn't activate at all in the United States, that would be a problem. Because if we activated more, I think it would be better to attract sponsors, because whether you're an Italian company or a Chinese company or an Indian company or an American company, it doesn't matter. Especially the OEMs. I mean, we have so many OEMs, and we're not in the, we're not owned by an OEM, but we have an OEM's title sponsor. The OEM's biggest market is the United States. I mean, maybe not Neo, or I guess Neo's not there anymore, or Mahindra, but basically, if you're Jaguar or you're McLaren or any of these other Maserati, any of these companies, DS. Well, maybe not. You got to be in the United States, so it's really significant. And the United States is a big place with 3 time zones, and a 6-hour flight between the East Coast and the West Coast. Choosing a Northwest place 3 hours outside of New York, I think we got to do better than Portland. And another thing about the calendar, but I do think it's critical. And I don't think it's critical because we're going to get any more fans, meaning, if there's a race in Mexico City at 4 p.m, Mexico City is right smack in the middle of the U.S. time zone. So it's in our time zone. It just happens to be, one of our 3 time zones. But it's not like, so television-wise, that's a U.S. race. It's not like that matters because we don't have great U.S. coverage. So it doesn't really matter. Having a U.S. race isn't going to create a massive U.S. audience. I mean, it might eventually, but I don't think Austin did either for years. But it was important for the sponsors, and it's important to put a flag in the United States since it's such a huge market. So I think we have to do it for our sponsors because it's really hard to get sponsors for both FE and for the teams. That to not give them the ability to activate in a big way in their biggest market is a big mistake. Let me just say something else though, because you mentioned Red Hook, Sam. Red Hook is great. There are 2 problems with Red Hook. One is there are only 6,000 seats. So we had a sponsor who wanted to have his office part. It's in the summer too. I'll come back to that. That's in New York, and I've lived in New York for 90% of my life. The summer is big in New York. And people take it a little easier. And you have office parties and you have things like this on a Saturday. So he wanted 100 seats. Like, you don't know what we had to do to beg, borrow, and steal to get him general grandstand seats because New York was such a small venue. And it was also in the summer. So like if you had Miami in June, if you had Miami in July, no one would be there. So having New York in July on a weekend, it's just lost. Many New Yorkers are out of town. There's a ton of stuff to do on the weekends in the summer. If you had New York maybe in April or May, April or October, maybe it would have worked better. So there's a lot of things that go into this, not just the venue, but the actual calendar. I don't think a city matters in the United States, Sam. I don't think it's like New York's a great city. I love it here. I'm here right now. But I don't think it has to be New York or it has to be Los Angeles or it has to be Portland. It just has to be something that works. Yeah. Mexico City works. And if we could have something like that in New York, would be amazing. In the US, would be amazing.
And you need continuity, of course. I mean, one of the reasons Mexico has become so successful is for the past 3 seasons, it's been on the same date. And ditto Riyadh, and the London Excel race is now, only happens at the end of July, and you get that continuity, and people know that it's in town at that weekend of the year. So that's imperative. Talking of London, both Andrew and I spent some time with Jeff Dodds, who came in June to take up the CEO position. Scott, I mean, what's your opinion of Jeff? I mean, everybody I've spoken to has only got pretty good things to say about him. He's been on board for almost 6 months now. How are you looking at his initial steps in this crucial role for Formula E so far?
Yeah, then I'm going to be boring because I agree with everything you heard. If it was positive, I think Jeff is amazing. I think he's. I feel completely comfortable and enthusiastic to being an owner with Jeff running the show.
Yeah, I mean he's obviously got a lot of challenges. I think there was a number of things that had to be cleared up, obviously, after the last administration. I mean, in terms of what you're looking for, Scott, we've already talked about the broadcasting situation and the fact that needs to be improved upon pretty quickly. But other than that, are there certain things that you'd like to see in terms of direction of Formula E going in the next sort of 12 to 18 months? How are you feeling about the growth of the championship, other than the sort of the media side of things?
Yeah, I think there are three issues, and we've talked about two of them. One is the calendar. One is the viewership, and I think the other is just sort of how the ecosystem works and how everyone plays with each other, and a communication to where everyone knows where they stand. And I think Jeff is very pro team. He's very pro FE. I think for now it might not always be this case, but he sees us, in the same that we all have the same wants and we all have the same desires, and we're not at odds, and we're parallel, and that there's no reason for us to cross, and I completely buy into that. Personally, I think the series, the way the series works, and maybe all series work this way, but American sports don't work this way at all. All the high level meetings and strategy are with the team principals and not the owners. And that never happens in American sports. You never have an NFL meeting with the head coaches or the general managers. The NFL meetings are with the owners because they're the ones who have their money behind this thing, and they really are much more in tune to what's going on. I mean, I guess the problem is when we used to have so many OEMs in it, you have team principals who have bosses 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 who have bosses, and the CEO of Jaguar or the CEO of Mercedes or even the CEO of Stellantis has a lot of other things like a UAW strike to worry about. But there are enough sort of owners of the team, and I think we have much more. And Jeff is very open. I mean, I can call Jeff anytime and speak to Jeff and all the executives at FE. They're very receptive, and they help us all the time. And I have nothing but really just incredible praise for all the Enrique and Henry and Alberto and Jeff. I mean, Alejandro. I mean, they're all incredible to us. But at the same time, I think that they need a formal meeting and hear the voices of the actual owners. I mean, team principals have enough on their plate. I don't know what they need to hear about the strategy of FE. It just seems like these guys have crazy jobs. I mean, they're CEOs, they're head coaches, they're what we call general managers, and they're what's called presidents. Like an NBA team or an NFL team has a general manager, a president, and a head coach. They're all that, and then they're the CEO of the organization. It's too much. So I think the stuff that they want to tell the TPs, they should be telling the owners and get feedback from the owners.
That's a really interesting point. And I think it's probably something that's more a motorsport thing than it being a European sport thing, because in football or soccer or whatever, when they talk about breakaway leagues or when UEFA or whoever discussing with them, they discuss it with the owners. I wonder if it goes back, Sam, to the old days when there would only really be Ferrari as an OEM and everyone else were small racing teams, and it's just become habit since then. But it's a really interesting point, and I think something that's uniquely motorsport.
Yeah, maybe the owners were like the Frank Williams. The owners were the TPs.
Exactly. Yeah. We've spoken a lot about off-track stuff and very little about on it. Looking back at the season that's passed, I know we're very close to the new season. I think it's safe to say it was probably the mixedest of mixed bags.
Yeah, the good news is it sucked, and everyone on our team would tell you that. And the reason why I say that's good news is because I think, and I could be wrong, our team, it was the original team. I think we were the first team to sign up with Alejandro. I could be wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure of that. So we've been in every Formula E race. And I think through 9 seasons, last year would have been our second best finish ever. So you would think after 9 years, you have your second best finish, that it could be good. But the fact that everyone was so disappointed is a good thing. It's because we turned this thing around and we got a taste of winning. We won 5 of whatever the number was, 16 or 17 races or 18 races in season 8. We took second in the championship. And once you taste winning, and you're the type of team that we are, hyper competitive, just hyper competitive and hyper hardworking. Once you taste victory, you want to get that taste back, and that's why I say it's a good thing that we took 6th in the championship, and we were not happy with it. And it's more than that. It was a tough year for everyone. So that's sort of top down. We came out of Valencia last year testing, and Max Gunter, one of our drivers, I think was number one on like every single time they went out. Go out for 2 seconds, he was the fastest. Go out for 2 minutes, he was the fastest. Go out for 20 minutes, he was the fastest. Whatever they were doing, he was always the fastest. And I think we had a new sponsor. We had a new car. We used to be customers of Mercedes. Now we're with Maserati. And I think we just thought like, oh man, we're really good, and we have a hot car, and this is going to be an easy year. And then we showed up in Mexico City, and we stunk. And then it didn't get better in Riyadh, and it never really got better until Indonesia. So it was a terrible start to the year. We obviously, which we tried to figure it out through the year. We got some answers. We had a good second half. Not a great second half, but we had I'd say a good to very good second half. So that's also a positive that like we could seem to learn on the fly from our mistakes. But we still continued to make too many mistakes, and I can't figure it out. We had tons of crashes. I'm hoping it's just was a bad luck year.
I mean, I think one of the big surprises for everybody last year, Scott, was Edo's struggles. I mean, it was a very difficult season for him. When did it become clear to you, and as a team, that Edo's time probably was coming to an end? It just became obvious, I think, to many observers that probably a change for both parties was the order of the day. Do you remember a sort of period of how that manifested itself?
Yeah, Edo. Edo was the heart of our team, and Edo's a great racer. Edo is a great guy. Edo is forget about racing. You'd want him to work in any organization. He's smart, like one of the smartest guys you'll meet, and he's fair-minded and everything. So he's amazing to have on our team, and he was a real team leader. He'd been with us a long time. And like you said, I don't know. Everyone has their time, and I think whatever happened, and I think he's at a great place. I mean, he's with Nick DeVries, who was who we wanted him to be with. If you remember, Sam and Andrew last year before we let Nick out of his contract to go race in F1. He's got a big manufacturer behind him with a lot of stability and resources, and I think I'm certainly rooting for Edo to do great. I'm a huge fan of Edo's.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating to see how he gets on in his new challenge there, and likewise as well with Jehan coming as the only rookie of the team also. But as well as surprises, things change in Team Scott in all kinds of sports. I mean, actually, motorsport is one of the least fast-paced in terms of changes. There's plenty of team principals that have been in since very early on in the championship. James Rossiter's time as a team principal came to an end in October, and Jose has been in an interim position, let's call it, as a TP. Are you expecting Jose to lead the team from the start of the 24 season? What's the latest on that situation presently?
Yeah, well, you're right, Sam, and that's aspirational for us, and we need what you said, meaning we need more stability. We've had this is our fourth year, Jose and I owning the team, and we've had 4 TPs. We've had we've had 4 or 5 different drivers. We have new drivers every year, a new TP every year, and I don't think that's an exaggeration. So we need to build on this stability, and we need to, and it starts from the top. And Susie was great, Jerome was great. They're all doing great in what they're doing now. Jose. Listen, Jose's an old friend of mine. Jose and I have been friends for over 20 years. I think the world of Jose. I'd love Jose to be our team principal forever. It's not going to happen. Jose's got 4 kids in Madrid. He lives in Madrid. He's got his wife in Madrid, and he has a bunch of very profitable businesses that he runs in Madrid. So this is a side gig for him, Sam. But we have a lot of people, as you can imagine. There aren't a lot of TP jobs out there, and there aren't a lot of great TP jobs with a championship team that has Maserati behind it. So we have our inbox is full. We want to take our time here, and because we have Jose, we can. And like I said, we have to stop all this revolving door of team principals. So we can't just rush into a team principal role and feel like, we need to get someone. So that's the beauty of Jose. Jose knows his team very well. He knows nothing about car racing, and that's an exaggeration. But team principal, you need a leader, and Jose's right now acting as that, and everyone knows Jose. They've known him for years. But Jose's not the story here. Jose is out. But the real story here is we want what you intimated, Sam. We want stability. We want to find the right team principal who doesn't have other aspirations and just wants to be here and lead our team into the future for many successful years. And we're not going to make any. We're going to take our extra time not to make any mistakes.
Well, been great having you on, Scott, but we can't let you go without making some form of prediction. We're a few weeks away from the start of the next season. If last season sucked, what does this one have to do to not suck?
I'd like to be, whereas the season before I would have said I'd like to win, I'd like to be in the top 4 this year. I'd like to make sure that, I don't want to see Porsche and Jaguar take the top 4 spots. That would just enrage me. Someone's got to get in there, and it's going to be us. I hope it's DS too. I hope we win and DS takes second. But our goal is to improve upon last year, which I think it should be easy. I mean, we crashed every race last year and came in 6th place, so we should be fine.
I'm not just saying this to flatter Scott and Lizzie Brooks, who's in the wings listening intently, but
we all know you were paid off at the beginning of this episode, Sam.
But Scott's right in a way. I mean, it would be great to see a good splash of blue in the top four consistently. One thing, I actually did a poll. I was part of a poll for a German, with some German colleagues, eforml.de, who we,
Are you moonlighting?
we're not a habit of promoting other websites, but they're good guys over there. And they asked me what my favourite livery is, and I think I've probably said it before. The liveries of the car, I'm not particularly. I don't hold in high esteem, really. If it looks aesthetically nice, great, but it's obviously has very little impact on who's quick or not. But the Maserati blue, I just think is such a great classic, simple but effective livery. It just instantly recognisable as the Maserati MSG cars. So be nice to see them getting up there, but it's going to be tough next year, as Scott alluded to. The Jaguars and the Porsches do have an all round great package. But let's see. Formula E always surprises us, doesn't it?
Yeah, no, you never know. That's what I love about this. But we have two great drivers, and I think Maserati's been working hard on making it better. And what just I can't end this without saying, like, Maserati, they're thrilled to be in this, Sam, and they're really, they make elite cars. They're really the aesthetic maker of that car, and we had to go through many iterations of blues before a blue was acceptable to Maserati. So they care a ton about this, and they want to win just as badly as we do. So to have a sponsor who's so who's so competitive and driven as we are, really it has been a lot of fun for us.
Brilliant. Well, I think that's a fantastic way to wrap up, and we wish you all the best and good luck in delivering on those expectations. Thank you very much, Scott.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Sam.
Some fascinating insights from Scott there, Sam. Really good to hear from him, and I'd love to have seen some of the shades of blue that they went through in order to get that. I agree with you. I think it looks stunning in the way it looks at the moment. Yeah,
they're a really great team to be around, and there has been some changes, as we discussed. James Rossiter's the obvious one, but there's also been other changes in the team. Cyril Blay, who was Alex Lynn's old engineer at Mahindra, is now the sort of senior engineer, and he's also engineering Max Gunther as well, as he did last season. And I just, Gunther's we always say he's a dark horse or a bit of an enigma. He never quite puts together a full season, but has these incredible spikes. And it's just going to be really interesting if he's able to do that this year, because when he's on it and when the conditions are right, he's nigh on unbeatable. But I just got a feeling that those opportunities are going to be a bit fewer and far between this season. But let's see. Max Gunther always surprises us, doesn't he, with some of his performances. So going to be really interesting to see how Maserati get on this season.
Yeah, well, one of the teams they're going to have to beat is Jaguar. And as we segue beautifully into our Any Other Business, top of the list there is they've opened a new Formula E HQ. Did you have a chance to look around it? I noticed some people were given a bit of a tour. Were you one of them?
I was, yeah. Really nice invite to go and see the new place. The team were literally moving in. I think they'd just been there a couple of days. The drivers, Nick Cassidy and Mitch Evans, were there for their first look around the place. Yeah, incredible facility. And basically an F1 headquarters, but without the wind tunnel, of course, and a few other rigs and so forth. But very impressive, incredible driving the loop simulator, remote room operations, a big design office. So yeah, great to look around. That, interestingly, is in Kidlington, which is the site of the old TWR operation. So it was about, I think it's about
home
half
of
a mile
famous
away.
Jags. Yeah.
Yeah, I was expecting Tony Dow to walk through the the doors at one stage. Yeah, but it's just nice to have that bit of heritage there. And yeah, I mean the way that they are working with JLR and actually working with a lot of their partners like Dow and Wolfspeed and several others, and the way that they're embedded within the team, I was really impressed by that, and the attention to detail that they have there and the capabilities are very impressive. So it was a good day. Plus there was Plus, there was a 1988 Le Mans winning Jag with Dumfries, Lammers, and Wallace on the side. So that obviously stirred up the fever considerably as we walked into the place. So yeah, great morning actually.
Are we to read from this that they are all but committed to the next gen then?
Well, that was an interesting one, wasn't it? I mean, that kind of investment and that kind of sort of laying down of a new home for the team, because previously they were based in Grove alongside Williams and WAE there. So yeah, you'd have to say that this is a commitment beyond the next couple of seasons. Gen 4 is coming at the end of 2026. I think they've not publicly stated that they will be part of Gen 4, but the assumption is that they're in this for the long haul. And of course, at present, Formula E is the only world championship in town, isn't it, from an electric point of view? And as we know, Jaguar Land Rover has got a pretty much an exclusive all-electric future from an automotive point of view. So yeah, this looks to be a considerable commitment to Formula E and all-electric motorsport in the future. So yeah, everything, huge positive vibe going around the corridors of this new base in Kidlington. So it's good to see.
One of the other things that Scott mentioned early on in our chat was how Formula One success came from its budget cap. Formula E were looking at something a little bit similar, but not quite, and that was capping the driver salaries. But this appears to have been kicked down the road a little bit. What's going on there?
Yeah, that's right. They've been looking at implementing a driver salary cap within the perimeter of the financial regulations, which has just come to the end of the first year. That auditing is now taking place. They submitted, the teams and manufacturers submitted their financial regulation inputs at the end of November. It had been talked about for a while. I think personal opinion, I think it's a sensible move to have this postponed, let's call it. There are no plans in the next couple of seasons till Gen 4. I think. Do we know what level we're talking about capping at? Because I'm just fascinated by what the salaries might be. Yeah, I mean, I did see some bullet points. They were flashed to me in the Monaco pit lane by some unscrupulous source, which was nice. But I honestly didn't see any definitive figures. I mean, generally the salaries in Formula E are assumed to be somewhere in the region between a span, let's say, of €500,000 to around just under €2 million. I think
it's not Charles Leclerc 50 mil a season money, is it?
No, it isn't. It isn't. But actually, pretty much every driver on the grid, perhaps bar one this season, but certainly in previous seasons, had been paid to race, which I think is quite amazing. It's very unusual, isn't it, for any series to have that. I mean, the top earners are, I hear, around the €2 million mark. I think the average is probably somewhere near the €750,000 mark, somewhere around that. But that's a bloody good whack, isn't it, for a racing driver, for a professional racing driver, and that is without the endorsements, personal endorsements, and other things, and win bonuses and points bonuses that are part and parcel of drivers' deals as well. The big concern was, I think, the fact that other series, notably the World Endurance Championship, are on the up and are going through a boom period where there are multiple manufacturers involved, and there would be a danger if you implemented a salary cap that there could be a brain drain, talent drain, let's call it, from Formula E, and nobody wants to see that. And then, of course, I think the way that Formula One is, certainly at the end of next season, there's going to be a big shift and a big turnaround in some drivers, because I'll use the phrase, I think there's a quite a bit of dead wood in Formula One, and it will be even deader by the end of next season, and it will need a refresh. And
first time ever, the same drivers will start the season that finished the previous
incredible,
one.
Isn't it? Yeah, absolutely extraordinary. Yeah. And I would say, I'm not going to name names, but I think at least two or three of those drivers are the aforementioned dead wood in my eyes, and ultimately they're going to have to come and try and find something else should they need to, and Formula E might be one of those homes that they go to. I mean, we've seen it in the past with, Felipe Massa and Esteban Gutierrez briefly, and
all that worked out.
Yeah, well, the ones that have worked out, and the drivers who did make it work, Jean-Eric Vergne and Sebastian Buemi, and even Lucas Di Grassi, of course. They've made it work really well for themselves, and they've got a decent decade-long career almost. So,
I've got a little anecdote about driver salaries in Formula E.
Oh, go on.
So, season 1, ahead of Battersea, we did a load of local outreach stuff, which included taking Sam Bird to do some football training with some kids at Roehampton, where he grew up, and I think he may have played for Roehampton FC.
Yeah,
briefly.
Decent player, Sam. Good player.
Oh, yeah, very good. Yeah, no, he was good. He had a great touch still as he was around. Anyway, there was a bit of a Q&A at the end of it, and one of these group of kids asked Sam how much he earned, and he sort of, slightly shyly didn't say it. Alex Ty, who was running Virgin at the time, said, he earns a $250,000 a year plus bonuses, and one of the kids went, Raheem Sterling gets that a week.
Excellent. A nice mention of the TIE fighter there, who isn't mentioned near enough for us.
No, absolutely not. Yeah. I don't know if he had a leather jacket on, but in my mind he did. In other news, the most venerable of Formula E circuits, Berlin, is having yet another iteration. It's come a long way since the season 1 haul of hairpins. I think it looks all right from what I've seen of it.
Yeah, you wrote a bit of a love letter to it, didn't you, in the last episode or the episode before?
Something like that. I don't know. Maybe I'd been listening to too much mid-70s Bowie or something.
Yes, they are going to change the circuit, so they're making it a bit more interesting. I think it was a lot better than season 1, which was a bit of a nightmarish kind of multiple hairpins and all kinds of intricate awful stuff. Yeah, so they had a decent circuit there, but yeah, why not mix it up a bit? They've got a lot of room and space, and they've got a lot of possibilities to amend the layout for the Tempelhof track. And yeah, I mean the start finish straight is going to be a bit further on, so pretty much where the back straight was before, a few more flowing corners, a few more regen areas as well. I think they've thought about it quite well, and yeah, it looks decent. But let's wait until May to see how it can improve the racing potentially. I mean, we've had some reasonable races at Tempelhof in the past, but they would have done simulations, and there'd have been a lot of thought going into this new layout. So yeah, why not? In space,
it's always a track surface there, though, isn't it? That's always the wild card.
That's a good part of the challenge as well, isn't it? So let's not give it, let's not make the teams and drivers too comfortable on a layout that they know inside out, and mix it up a bit. Yeah, I think it's a good decision.
When we do our futuristic look back, I don't know what we'll call it, bring back car swaps or something, we'll do an episode on how the hell Trulli got a pole in season 1 in Tempelhof.
Yeah, that was a double take, wasn't it? Definitely a double take. Imagine if it had done it the season after with that shed.
Oh my word!
Yeah.
What was it called? I want to call it the Multimatica. It was
Motomatica, wasn't it?
Motomatica.
Yeah. No, there's one for a quiz, Formula E quiz on a rainy Thursday night or whatever. Yeah.
It would be me and you and some of those other fan sites. Anyway, looking forward, Gen 4 tenders, some potential surprises.
That's what we're hearing. Yeah, it's not been. We expect it to be confirmed imminently. So by the time this goes out, I'm sure it'll be publicly known. But the battery tender is the real interesting point here. It was assumed that it was a straight fight between WAE, the present suppliers of the spec battery, and McLaren Applied, who delivered the Gen 2 battery. But actually, there was we think a couple of other, let's call them outsiders coming up on the rails, and one of those is Podium Advanced Technologies, which is a company that not many people know. But actually, no. I do. I'm sure you don't, but I do, because they were involved in the Glickenhaus project, in the hypercar project, and various other Glickenhaus projects as well.
Pretty, but slow.
Yeah, I mean, I actually got a soft spot for Glickenhaus. I thought they did pretty damn well with the with what they had at their disposal budgetary wise. They were there, and they occasionally took the fight to Alpine and Toyota in 21, and they got a podium at Le Mans, and okay, the opposition wasn't there, but to do that, actually, this was, when you put it alongside some other privateers we've seen in sports cars in the recent past, it was a decent crack at it. So I've got quite a lot of respect for them.
You're saying it's better than Vanwell?
In my position as also working with the WEC, I'm not comfortable going into details on that, Andrew. Thank you, but I don't want to. I really don't want to hack off the good Dr. Colles on that one. But no, I think they put a really good package together there, and to get those results was decent. And what I hear about Podium is that they're an extremely ambitious company, and they supply the Moto E batteries as well. So they do have a reasonable track record in supplying spec batteries for motorsport. I mean, it's not confirmed, but we hear that they are the favourites to do that. In terms of the chassis, what I hear is that there were very few tenders that went into the mix, and it is assumed that Spark will continue to be the chassis providers there, probably with Dallara, but again, not confirmed. And the tyres, I've heard nothing about the tyres. Again, a bit of a presumption that Hankook will continue to supply the tyres for Gen 4 as well. But again, just to reiterate, that isn't confirmed at all. So it'd be interesting to see what the FIA does divulge in the next couple of days.
In the final note, you got Phil Charles at DS. I'm sure we did that in the last podcast, didn't we? Or is this now a confirmation of something that we rumoured last time?
I think we might have alluded to it, that he could be in a black and gold shirt. I mean, it doesn't take too much to join the dots there, does it? But yeah, we ran a story in the last few days about Phil Bin working for Penske, and we believe that he has been hired by Penske rather than the DS element of that operation. Super interesting, because he was the guy who called the shots from a technical team point of view at Jaguar TCS Racing, and I spoke to both James Barclay, the team principal of Jaguar TCS Racing, and to Mitch Evans when I visited Kidlington, and they, as you would imagine, James had a reasonably diplomatic viewpoint on that whole affair, but Mitch was, as Mitch is, which is great, was fairly forthright in his opinion that this was a real shock, and actually, they need to pivot and adjust accordingly to make sure that this great chance that they have of taking a title, their first title in 24, isn't lost because of this. And I'm sure it won't be, because there's a great strength in depth at Jaguar. There's some very good people there. We mentioned this in the last podcast, but DS Penske will be getting an extremely capable, extremely accomplished operator with Phil Charles. And actually, I've also found out just today, so news that is as fresh as a set of Hankooks after a season of Gen 3
It's probably
racing.
got about 3 weeks from recording date there, Sam, so you never know.
But there's also another appointment at DS Penske, which is Kyle Wilson-Clark, who is Pascal Wehrlein's engineer. So he's moving from Porsche to DS Penske. Okay. And Kyle, who I've known since he was a kid, which makes me feel old. He was an engineer at the Chamberlain Lola team at Le Mans back in 2000 and God knows when, 2005 or something ridiculous like that. And Kyle is going to be working for DS Penske. So, after a very mediocre season last season, they're certainly making moves to try and improve things. Whether that can be for next season, or it more likely to be for the Gen 3 Evo season of 2025, I think, with a long-term view. But that's some interesting news from some of the top teams, and a little bit of should we call it poaching? That's quite an old school word.
I think it's a statement of intent from DS Penske, isn't it?
Bringing
in these big hires from rival teams. No room for your calendar update here, Sam, with like 5 weeks to the season. We're assuming everything's fine, are we?
Well, I wouldn't go that far. It's Formula E, Andrew, for goodness sake. We'll probably end up doing a Boxing Day podcast with a calendar update special, won't we? No, we may shoehorn, for those who might be interested, we may shoehorn a little Christmassy one in with some special guests from Formula E's new TV talent pool, which could be quite interesting. So we might get a new, one final 2023 podcast out before the end of the year.
You better get it done quick, mate. I'm getting all these Christmas lunch invites, whatever room for it.
Yeah, we'll try and do a sober one, shall we, for a change?
Well, very good stuff. Thanks, Sam. And don't forget to check out the-race.com for any little bits and pieces that do happen between now and the Christmas break, although I suspect it's all on a little bit of a wind down. And but we've got plenty of other podcasts coming out. The Formula One guys will be reviewing the season. I wonder who might be the driver of the season there, Sam. I don't know, it's a mystery. But yes, thank you very much for listening, and goodbye.
The Athletic.